This commuter bike from Troxus, called the Trax, at first glance looks honestly absolutely amazing. The seamless welding on the entire frame is really well done. The paint color is awesome. They call it red on their website, but that really doesn't do this color justice. It's just a really good looking bike. And then you start looking at the details like 180 millimeter rotors, hydraulic brakes. It comes standard with this Sun Tour NCX suspension seat post, which is one of my favorites. And you start to think, wow, this could be a really good value. And then you find out the price is $2,800 and you say, whoa, hold up. Why is it so expensive? I'm gonna answer that question and why it's actually not that expensive, because there's something hiding in here that I think makes it absolutely worth it. At least I think it will. I haven't even ridden the bike yet. But first things first, the battery is fully charged. The bike is on the dyno. Let's see if it produces the power as advertised. The motor is from Bafang, and it does say 750 on it. I just know from experience, these being narrower than the fat bike motors, it is a little harder to get that peak torque and power out of them. So let's see what it does. Nice low step through. Interesting screen setup. It's like color, but it's not. I don't know. I'll get a close up of that. Got 5 levels of assist in case it matters. I went ahead and cranked it up to the max. Let's see what the power does in 1, 2, 3. That torque's looking pretty good. Really good, actually. And definitely has a speed limit capped at 20 miles an hour. I'm gonna have to look at the settings and see how to change that, because the bike's absolutely got enough power to go faster. How do we change it? I don't know how to change it. Oh, there's a password. Oh no. Okay, so I was only using the throttle that time. It says online that it's 28 miles an hour with pedaling as a class 3. So it might just be that I have to move the cranks around to get it to go a little faster. So it's gonna be a little tricky. I don't think I'm gonna get a good dyno run out of this, but let's try and get this up to speed. Maybe I can get it. There we go. I don't think that changed the dyno results at all, but let's stop it and find out. Pretty good. 1,058 watts. They were claiming 500, 750 peak. Easily does that. Max of 29 foot-pounds of torque. That is, I'm gonna be honest, more than I expected. That's actually quite good. I think probably a big reason it's able to put that much power down to the ground is because of these tires. They're 27.5. They're nice low rolling resistance. They're gonna be lighter than a lot of the fat tire bikes we put on here. I think that's really helping. 1,058, 29 foot-pounds. With 29 foot-pounds, 1,058, that's gonna jump way past the Rad City, although that's a similar type of bike, just doesn't have anywhere near the power. I mean, that foot-pounds different is amazing. Past the other Rad Rover bikes, the Amazon Cyclone, the Jan Snow, the Hauchi Cheetah. It's even gonna pass the Mach Wheel Basalt by just a hair on both the wattage and the foot-pounds of torque. That is a fat bike. So if we put a street tire on this, that might be different, but out of the box, that's gonna put it right here, just underneath the Run Deer Attack 10. That is a really respectable performance from the Troxus bike. I love it when I get great dyno results from a bike that are better than expected, because it just makes me more excited to go ride it. So I think one of the secrets to the performance of this bike, I'm gonna go ahead and spill the beans on my favorite part of the bike, even though I haven't ridden it, is the battery. It has a massive 48 volt, 30 amp hour battery. That's almost 1.5 kilowatt hours. Most batteries are half that size. You know, big batteries these days are typically 20 amp hours. Usually bikes that are in the 20 to 30 are running some sort of dual battery setup. This is one single battery, and they've managed to fit it into a sleek commuter frame. I think that's what makes me even more excited. Usually for this, you're gonna have a battery in here, second one mounted here or on a back rack, and they just managed to fit it all together in the frame seamless. It looks great, it's sleek. I never would have guessed that this was a battery that big, but I think that's helping the performance because bigger battery means less voltage drop when you're really pushing the power, so it can sustain higher wattage and higher torque for longer. So I think that's just helping this bike right out of the gate. The screen protector's still on, but this is what I was talking about with the display. It looks really basic, but it's in colors, so I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. Pedal assist 1 through 5. If we press the info button, we have miles per hour average. Oh, that's awesome. It's calculating. I don't know how it's calculating because I haven't used the bike yet. How many amp hours of battery capacity? Somehow it's estimating how much we have left. Unless this is a smart battery and it's actually reading it from the battery. That is a possibility. Yeah, the bike literally has 1 mile on it and it's saying we're at 99%. Let's see how that changes as we go ride it. Star thistles, nasty little things, but shouldn't be a problem. These are supposedly thorn-proof tubes or tires. They are e-bike rated, I noticed as well. So I was expecting super long range from this bike based on the 27.5 tires, based on the giant single 30 amp hour battery. That's really nice. I was also expecting it to be upright and comfortable, which so far it is, especially the Sun-Toured suspension seat posts. Super nice. I think they're one of the best values as far as suspension seat posts go. You can spend twice as much and get something that I think basically feels the same. But what I was not expecting is that this thing is a powerhouse. It scoots along really well. The only thing I'm gonna point out as a small letdown, it's not a big deal to me. I don't really care, especially because it's hard for me to put in a lot of physical effort and exercise on bikes these days. It is a cadence sensor. We're seeing a lot of torque sensors on bikes these days, especially for $2,800. This thing, I'm getting a close-up for you because the paint job is just really nice. I like it. I like the color. I like the frame. That all looks really good. And the sun's going down, and I want to make sure you see it while it's out in the sunlight. Just the detail is just really good. Yeah, these Sun-Toured suspension seat posts, it's because they don't move straight up and down. They have this parallel design. So the saddle actually moves back and down in the opposite direction the tire would be going if it's moving up and over a bump. So it's counteracting a bump with exactly the right motion. It really does make a difference. It's one of those things you have to experience to really understand it. 180 millimeter rotors with hydraulic brakes. That's sufficient for this bike. It is 80 pounds, which is kind of heavy for a commuter bike. That giant battery makes up for it. This thing is gonna roll so nicely. It already does, and it accelerates so quickly. Really is quite surprising what the performance feels like. I wasn't expecting that. You don't always get a suspension fork on a commuter bike. It's got one by Zoom. It's not, just double checking to make sure there's no adjustment on the bottom of this thing. I don't think there is. So no adjustment down low. It does have an adjustable lockout, so that's good. Preload on the other side, of course. The bike does have lights. That's an interesting looking light. I wonder how bright that thing is. How do we turn this thing on? The buttons are interesting. I think the display in the buttons had like an IP67 waterproof rating. So they really do mean this is a commuter bike. They want you to be able to use this thing year round. There clearly is a spot for a front rack with these mounting bolts right here. I don't have one, but it does come with the rear rack rated for 55 pounds. It's nice and sturdy, super cool. The tail light is part of the rear rack. Now, I don't know if I like that from a repair standpoint, replacement standpoint, but as far as just looks and sleekness, it looks amazing. That is really cool. My only concern is you can't move it. You know, I wouldn't want your saddlebag hanging down and covering that up or anything. I don't know if that's a tail light or a brake light or not. It kind of is. When you pull your brakes, it's flashing. So it's not brighter, it just starts flashing when you pull the brakes, and then it's just on all the time otherwise. That's an interesting setup. I think that's probably effective. The grips are actually really comfortable. They look just like regular rubber grips. They're a little softer than typical. The shape is really nice. I don't normally mention little details like the grips unless they're really good. So they feel right. They're using a nice big waterproof heavy duty connector going back to the motor. So that's good. Oh, that wasn't actually screwed on all the way. That would be better if it was. It is now. So yeah, I've gone from 1 mile to 1.7 miles, and I can't stop talking about the bike. I need to go ride it more. The sun is absolutely going down. There is no way I'm gonna kill this battery today. Realistically, I could go ride until it gets dark tonight, and then I could ride most of the day tomorrow without even having to recharge it. The Biconic Warthog bikes, I only mention them because the battery capacity is exactly the same size. Now those are accomplishing this capacity with dual batteries versus this single battery. But I usually tell people that pretty conservatively, they could go 50 to 80 miles on one of those, and that's a heavy, fat tire off-road bike. This is a still heavy, but much sleeker, much lower rolling resistance commuter bike. So I think you'd probably be on the low end 70 or 80 miles. And if you're pedaling this thing at all, over 100 miles should be doable, which is pretty cool. That means that if you live 15 miles away from work, you could go to work full throttle, don't even have to pedal if you're like, I don't want to get sweaty in the morning. I'm just going to throttle it all the way to work. You could go to lunch in the middle of the day. You could go to the grocery store after work. You could make a stop at your kid's soccer game after that. That's on the opposite side of town, another 10 miles in the other direction. Still go home throttle only and possibly repeat the same thing the next day, even if you forgot to plug it in. On a shorter, more typical commute, you could probably go the whole week without charging if you wanted to. I would still charge it up to every day because that just seems like the smarter thing to do. So they're doing this to kind of skirt around the Class 2, Class 3 laws. There's a sticker on the back of the frame that says Class 3. So I'm just going throttle only right now, and I'm getting 20 miles an hour. So effectively, this is a Class 2 bike right now. But as soon as I start pedaling, it's gonna pick up speed. Come on, I'm pedaling. Do I have to let go of the throttle? Oh, okay, I actually have to let go of the throttle. And now, I can actually be ghost pedaling where I'm really just pretending to pedal, I'm not putting any effort in, but now it'll go 28. So smooth. So the bike is fast. I'm just gonna say a special thank you to Troxus for making the gearing right. I'm at 20 miles an hour and I can pedal. I'm still pedaling at 24, still pedaling at 25. So a lot of bikes, you run out of gears. You can't put any input in. I'm doing 30, I'm still putting effort in. This is actually all me in the hill. The motor's off because it cut out at 28. Now it kicked back in. Thank you for doing that correctly. Let's skip over here to the bike path. This thing really does scoot right along. As soon as you start pedaling, let's go! The suspension is working pretty good. I have the tires pumped up to the max. I did it because I pumped the rear up to the max for the dyno run to get an accurate test. And then I just went ahead and pumped the front up to the same thing. And I was just hitting a bunch of these little bumps and cracks in the concrete here. And the front fork is doing a decent job soaking up the bumps. And then the suspension seat post is making it so I'm not even having to get off the saddle. I'm still just staying seated. I don't even feel them. The seat is pretty decent as well. So it's a combination of the seat and the seat post. The motor does make a little bit of noise. Kind of normal for a planetary geared hub motor. I don't know what the reduction is in this particular version, but there's definitely gears in there. But yeah, I was expecting a comfortable upright commuter with just ridiculous long range. I wasn't expecting the speed. It's a quick bike. Braking. Brakes work good. So I've been zipping around at top speed and I still got 94% battery. Just hit 4 miles. So I haven't gone very far yet, but gonna keep going. I think I should take this thing over to Hilltop again. It's the steepest hill in this neighborhood across from the park over here. And see how well it does up the hill. Because this will go up to 20 miles an hour on throttle, I can just do a throttle up the hill. It's not gonna go more than 20 up the hill. It's really steep. But I can see how well it does without my input. Bug in the eye. So the last bike I took up this hill on throttle only did about 4 miles an hour. It still made it, but barely. Here we go. $13, $11, $10. Oh, this is the steepest part. This is where it gets tough. Oh, this hill just eats these bikes alive. All right, it made it, and you definitely have to make sure your brakes are working well before you go back down this hill. In case you're worrying about flipping over the handlebars, I'm using only the front brake going down this hill. Just put your weight back, you'll be fine. People act like they hit the front brakes and flip over the handlebars all the time. You know how much traction that takes to actually make that happen? Like, you really have to try. The only thing that's taking me a little while to get used to is the fact that the throttle prevents the assist from working over 20. So you have to let off of the throttle if you start pedaling to actually go faster, which just feels like the opposite. Normally you'd want to go faster. You give the throttle a little blip, but if you're over 20 or at 20, it's the opposite. So throttle on, I start pedaling, can't go any faster, but as soon as I let go, we're going. Just takes a little getting used to. It encourages you to use your legs. Still at 90% battery. Should I go straight? Yeah, I'm gonna go straight. I'm gonna add some more miles on it, just for the sake of trying to get a rough idea of how far I could actually go on this. It's quick downhill. We're doing 31 miles an hour. Now, if you really wanted to, because this bike rolls so easily, you could do what I'm doing right now. Let off the throttle, stop pedaling, coast down the hills, and this thing rolls really nice. And you could dramatically increase your range doing that. That's when I think, stretching it like that, 150 miles maybe? Let me know in the comments, how far do you think you could go on this bike? Let's see if I can get a nice scenic shot before the sun goes down. That's what I'm shooting for. I'm not doing a very good job of using the battery though, because right now I'm coasting down the hill. The tires are rolling so nice. Anything over 28, the motor shuts off. I want to use more power. It's not a complaint, I guess. It just means I'm gonna go really far. I just went like another mile and my battery didn't drop at all. I'm still at 89%. Let's see if these cars know how to obey the law of 3 feet. Gonna sneak in right here. All right, I've got a nice long uphill. Let's see if this uses a little bit of battery power. Probably the only thing I would change for me personally is I wish that you could throttle above 20. I know that's not legal, but I still wish that I could. I don't know who that was. So here we've got a super long stretch of open road. I'm not putting any power in. I'm doing 29 miles an hour. This would be a great, I don't know, it might be a great, cross-country bike. I mean, you're still gonna get a little more torque on the low end if you've got a mid-drive bike. So power-wise, this is great. But if you're gonna be climbing a ton of hills, you might want a little more on the low end. But like I said, it did surprise me. It's better than average. When I left the house with this bike, I wasn't expecting that I was gonna go very far. And as soon as I started riding it, I was like, I know I gotta go as far as I can before the sun goes down. Dangerous area. It's probably gonna get dark on my way back, so I better wrap up. I don't know what else to say about the bike. I feel like at this moment, I have zero complaints. If I had a complaint earlier, you'll have to go find it because I forgot what it was. I think that tail light is visible enough for oncoming cars. It looks pretty good, especially when you brake and it starts flashing like that. But this is probably the best long-range commuter I've tested. I've tested other great commuter bikes. For example, this is gonna ride very similar to an Aventon Level. Now those do have a torque sensor at a lower price, but the battery's only half of this size. So again, that stipulation, long-range commuter. And fit and finish on the overall bike is just excellent. I see zero issues with the bike whatsoever. If I bought one of these, I would be just 100% happy with it. I'll put a link in the description where you can get one of the Troxus Trax bikes. Also, we are opening our new retail store. We're gonna have a grand opening on November 18th and have a ton of awesome Black Friday deals. I wanna hear in the comments, do you wanna see brands like Troxus in our retail store? I think this one would be a great fit. Quality's nice. It has something unique, which is a massive battery, which I love. But not only is it a massive battery, they managed to fit it in without it looking like a massive battery. The bike just looks really clean. Troxus, I'm really glad you sent this my way so I could test it out. I hope to see more of your bikes. I don't even know where this road goes. but it's windy for the next 2.5 miles.